Welcome, brave souls, to the chilling depths of horror in detail. Today, we will share real Wendigo horror stories that will send shivers down your spine. I think there is a Wendigo in the Minnesota woods. First things first, I wasn't there, but I was the first person he told. This happened in southeast Minnesota. I am not going to be telling the exact location, but it was in a smallish forest on a long bike trail. One more quick thing. It was really windy this day. My friend, who we will call S, and his father were on a bike ride. It was about a 12-mile bike ride. So they are doing their thing when about 5 miles and S sees what he thinks is a deer. They keep going and S sees a flash of brown next to them in the trees, and it is like this thing is running next to them, like keeping pace, but he doesn't hear anything. He points it out to his dad, and his father says that it's probably a deer, but he agrees it is really weird. So they keep going. They get to this little beach where they usually rest and look at the river. S notices something feels off. He notices that first of all, there is no trees swaying. Secondly, there is no animal noises. Then he realizes he didn't see any animals the whole time they were there, except the deer. The silence was heavy. It was like every animal left. The woods were silent. S tells his dad that he isn't feeling very well and that he wants to go home. His dad begrudgingly agrees. They get on their bikes and S is almost hyper-aware of his surroundings. They go for a while until S sees a flash of brown again and antlers. They keep going until they hit this clearing. The clearing looks like a big field with trees around it and a bike trail through it. As they enter the clearing, S looks back, and there is the fucking beast standing on its hind legs, and he said it was like 9 feet tall. It had antlers, and it looked like it had a deer head or some shit. He said he was terrified. They finally got out of the woods and the wind was back and there was animal noises again. I think this was a Wendigo, but I am not sure. I honestly don't know if I believe him, but we are in Minnesota and it wouldn't be impossible. But are we a bit too far south for Wendigos? If you have any ideas or theories, please let me know. Okay, apparently I haven't hit the minimum word count, so I'll give you more minor details. We are pretty much at the bottom of Minnesota. Nowhere close to Rosisu, Minnesota. Like I said, it was really windy this day, like really windy. I think S is kinda sensitive to the paranormal. Just a little bit. Although the Wendigo isn't really paranormal. They have been biking on this trail before. They didn't go the whole way, they went about half. I think it is too short to be a Wendigo. Is it possible it is a skinwalker? I looked on a map, and the tribes that were in this area were the Dakota Sioux. This area usually has a lot of wildlife. It was before noon when this happened. He didn't see any other people other than him and his dad. Neither of us know what to think about this. I'll ask him about what it smelled like, or if it smelled weird in the area. Second story. The deer and bathroom ghost. This happened like 8-9-ish years ago. I don't know if they're connected, but they happened about a month away from each other. The first one was while I was on the road with my family. We were driving home after working from a fair, and we were on a long stretch of flat field. It was nighttime, so there was nothing to see. We get to an old stoplight, and I can see something far away in the distance. It looks biggie-ish, hunched over, and almost on all fours. The closest thing I can say it looked like was a deer. I make eye contact with it, or at least I think I do. There were 2 pinpoint lights. It then seemed to be getting closer. It wasn't walking, just kinda, shifting closer to the car. I'm starting to internally panic, but the light is still red, so there's not much I can do. Eventually the car starts going again, and when I turn around, the deer is just kinda where the car used to be sitting. I blink and it's gone. A month later, I'm home and in the bathroom, and I hear something call my name. It doesn't sound like my parents, but it does sound exactly like my favorite game character. At first it says my name slow, and almost like a question, then it just starts to call it out. I bite my tongue because my skin is crawling and something is not right. After like a minute, I'm just like, yeah. No response. I eventually finish and ask my parents if they called my name. Mom was gone and my dad was downstairs. Apparently, my mom had a similar experience in the bathroom while she was in the army. She was just doing her thing, and an unknown voice said, "You will marry my dad's name." She calls it the bathroom ghost. Third story. Something in the woods called back to me. All right, here it goes. I've never posted here before, but what happened to me last weekend still has me rattled. I need to get it off my chest, and maybe, just maybe, someone here can help me make sense of it. I live in a small town in Montana, nestled in the Rockies. My house is just a few miles from a vast expanse of national forest land. It's beautiful, sure, but it can be incredibly isolating. That isolation is part of why I love it, but after what happened, it's also why I'm terrified. Last Saturday, I decided to take a late afternoon hike. There's a trail I frequent, one that winds up to a small clearing overlooking the valley. I brought my dog, Max, a German shepherd who's never been spooked by anything in his life. We set off around 3 p.m., figuring we'd be back before sunset. The hike up was uneventful. The forest was serene, and the only sounds were the rustling of leaves and the occasional chirping of birds. Max was his usual self, darting ahead and then circling back to me. It was perfect, exactly why I moved out here. When we reached the clearing, I sat down on a fallen log to catch my breath and enjoy the view. Max was sniffing around, but after a few minutes, he froze. He was staring at the tree line on the opposite side of the clearing, his ears perked up and his body tense. "What's up, boy?" I asked, trying to see what he was looking at. That's when I noticed it. At first, it was just a shadow moving between the trees. I squinted, thinking maybe it was a deer or something, but then it stepped out into the clearing. It looked like a person, but not quite. It was tall and gaunt, with limbs that seemed too long for its body. Its skin was pale, almost grayish, and its eyes were completely black. Max started growling, a low, menacing sound that I'd never heard from him before. The figure took a step forward, and that's when I noticed it was mimicking my movements from earlier, almost like it was replaying a tape of me walking. Then it spoke. "Max, what's up, boy?" The voice was mine. Exactly mine. I felt a chill run down my spine, and Max started barking furiously. The figure stopped, tilted its head, and then turned around, disappearing back into the trees. I didn't stick around to see if it would come back. I grabbed Max by the collar and practically ran down the trail. It was getting dark, and every sound made me jump. Max kept looking back, growling intermittently. We made it home just as the last light was fading. I locked all the doors and windows, something I rarely do out here. I tried to calm myself down, rationalizing that maybe it was just some sort of trick of the light, or maybe another hiker messing with me. But deep down, I knew that wasn't it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house made me jump, and Max was restless, pacing around the living room. Around 2 a.m., just as I was starting to doze off, I heard it. "Max, what's up, boy?" It was faint, almost like a whisper, but it was definitely my voice. It was coming from outside, near the tree line. I didn't sleep at all after that. When the sun finally came up, I took Max and drove into town. I needed to be around people, somewhere that didn't feel so exposed. I told my friend Jake about it, and he just laughed, saying I'd been out in the woods too long. Maybe he's right. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But I can't shake the feeling that something out there saw me, remembered me, and called back in my own voice. I haven't been back to that trail since. Every time I think about going for a hike, I hear that voice again, and I can't bring myself to leave the house. I don't know what I saw, but I'm sure of one thing. It saw me too. Has anyone else experienced something like this? I need to know I'm not losing my mind. Fourth story. The hunt for a Wendigo. Ever since I found out about Wendigos, I've been obsessed with them. They're mythical creatures that are rooted in the Algonquin-based Native American folklore. They have heightened senses, they're extremely fast, unnaturally large, and strong. These are all advantages that help them stalk their prey. I'm so intrigued by them because no one knows if they actually exist. I've spent hours researching about them. I know pretty much everything about them. The Wendigo is pretty much the embodiment of gluttony. Always consuming yet never satisfied, they're always at the point of starvation. I've read about so many skinwalker and Wendigo encounters, but no one actually knows if the stories are true. So neither do I. That's why Rose, Charles, and I made a group for hunting mythical creatures. We go out into the forest sometimes to look for the creatures. We haven't had any luck yet. I love to talk to my grandpa about them, and hearing his stories about them are always the best. Every time he tells me a story, at the end of it, he says, "Don't go near the northern forests of the Atlantic coast and Great Lakes region of the United States and Canada." The thing about this is that I am too curious, and I live near the forest he talks about. It's 25 minutes away walking distance. I know my way around the forest because of my map, and it's so close to my house. I've been there before with my friends, but we've never been that deep into it. The doorbell rings as I get a message. I open my phone. The message says, "I'm here." I walk downstairs to the front so I can open the door. As I look through and open the door, I see Rose and Charles. "Hi," said Rose eagerly. Charles groans. "Hey, are you ready yet?" "We just walked here to make sure that you were ready," Rose added. "Yeah, come inside really quick. I have some stuff I need to grab," I insisted. Rose exclaimed, "I got a new tracker this weekend." "Is it actually a good one this time?" Charles murmured. Rose states sarcastically, Yes, I would totally buy a broken tracker." "I'm messing around with you, geez," Charles snickered. We all head out of the house and in the direction of the forest. About 30 minutes later, we make it to the edge of the forest. I take a deep breath, looking into the slight fog and menacing atmosphere of the viridian-tinted forest. Minutes passed until I broke my eyes free before entering the forest. This time the atmosphere was different. It was so thick, eerie, and it felt alive. I've never actually believed that I would encounter a Wendigo. We just enjoy going exploring and pretending that we'll run into it. We walked through the forest for what felt like hours. I knew it was the deepest we've ever gone in, and I had lost where we were on the map. Rose flustered with concern. "Hey, we've been walking for hours. Are you sure you know where we're going or how to get back?" "Yeah, don't worry, Rose. I have my map and compass with me." We came into the forest from the west, and we're heading north toward the caves, I reassured. "Everything looks the same around here," Rose scolded. "I mean, they are all just trees and bushes," Charles smirked. We walk deeper into the forest as dusk falls upon us. The golden-pink horizon illuminated over the forest, leaves and shrubs creating beautiful shadows. We walked for a little while until we stumble upon what looks like a slaughtered animal. All we see is red, blood red. The cedar trunks of the trees, the mossy green ground, the evergreen shrubs. Those colors were no longer vibrant greens, only objects doused in blood. I can't believe my eyes. There was no words, just silence. I couldn't tear my eyes from this gruesome, mutilated mess of whatever it was. Could an animal really do something like this? I questioned if we were alone in these woods. Minutes passed with terror in our bones, dead silence, no animals in sight. Not a single sound carried through the forest as the sun falls behind the horizon, until I hear a few branches breaking from in front of the bloodbath. I look ahead of the mess into the darkness, only to see two bright, frosty-colored eyes peering into my soul from within the obsidian-shaded forest. More branches break through the forest ahead of us, approaching closer, slowly stalking us in the darkness. As I look closer at this horrendous monster's outline, as it approaches, I see something hanging from its mouth. I think that it's a hunk of flesh, but I can't make it out. I fix my gaze towards its hand, and I'm instantly filled with terror. I knew what this was. I see a hunk of flesh in its mouth. Its unnaturally long and bony fingers are gripping onto a human head. It was the thing I've been looking for. I can't believe it. I never thought I would actually run across one of them. That face, the abnormally large body with skin stretched across all of its bones. I knew right then and there I had to run. I had to run for my life. It was now or never. Ah! Rose squealed as she realized what was in the forest with us. I turned around as fast as I could. My friends and I started running for our lives. Shortly after, I could hear it intently chasing after us. Branches snapping behind us as we run with no direction. The Wendigo lets out an inhumanly screech. My heart is pounding as we all hide, hoping the creature doesn't find us. We're all so exhausted and out of breath, yet trying not to move or make a sound. We listen closely as we hear cracking of twigs inching closer to our vicinity. That's when I heard the most eerie sound in my life. Not too far into the woods, I heard a soft voice of a little girl asking for help. "Help, please. Someone come help me," pleaded the small girl. It can mimic voices? What is this? I mean, there can't be a little girl out here this deep in the forest all by herself, right? Without hesitation, Rose jumps out of her hiding spot and goes to try and help the small girl. "Hey, little girl dash," Rose murmured. Within second of her speaking, I hear her vocals cut out, and I heard nothing else but the horrific sounds of something I couldn't even imagine. I look out from my hiding spot to see Rose completely mangled and her blood all over the soil. I couldn't believe it. Why did she do that? She knew it was after us. I can't help but stare, and my friend is just gone like that, and I couldn't even help her. I'm so sorry, Rose. We should have never come here. I brought you here and I never should have done that. Hey guys, you can come out now, it's safe. The monster ran away, Rose reassured. Oh my, Rose, how could it do this to us? It stole her voice and now it's trying to lure us out. These things are sick. I heard what that thing did to her. She can't be alive. There's no way I could let it trick me like this. I look hastily at the creature from my hiding spot as I wait for my opportunity to run out of this place for good. It felt like I must have been waiting there for hours, waiting for this thing to leave, because it knew we were hiding somewhere there. Through the dark, ominous forest, there were stray beams of light and laughter approaching. The creature heard the laughter and branches and decided that it was done here. It wanted to go after whoever was over there. So that's when we took our chance to run west and get the hell out of that forest. I ran until my feet blistered. At the sight of lights, I sighed in relief, then collapsed to the ground as I'm panting, choking on the fresh air, bawling my eyes out with Charles. I feel sorry for those people, but I barely made it out alive myself. Rose wasn't as lucky as we were. I collected myself after crying and shaking on the ground for what felt like ages. I got up, gave the forest my last goodbye, and went on my way through the dark night, illuminated by only stars in the sky and the empty street lights. Never again have Charles or me mention this to each other or anyone again. It's buried as deep in our memories as far as they could go. Fifth story. The Wendigo story. I'm not entirely sure if this was a Wendigo, or what. I just usually refer to this as that, since this took place not far from an Indian reservation in upstate New York. A few years ago, 2012 or 2013 I think, since I was still in high school then, I was at a party with some friends, and as the night goes on, Maybe 11 to 12 at night, one of my friends and I go outside to have a cigarette. The second we get outside, there's just this completely awful, foul smell. Like just blood, vomit, piss, and death all at once. Now this was somewhat the middle of nowhere, so we just figured it was a dead animal, and went on with having that cigarette. Less than a minute later, we hear something moving in the dark, and sure enough, a deer comes hobbling into the very edge of the porch light. So we just mention, "Ah, how cute," and the like. But then I noticed something. One of its front legs was messed up in some way. And I'm talking like broken in multiple places, messed up. So my friend and I are slightly off-put by this, less than we should have been since drunk, and finish up our cig and go to head inside. However, right as we start to do that, one of the two porch lights goes pop and goes out. So now it's less light outside and this deer is back into the darkness. So, a bit giddily, we both do this like fake scared squeal at each other and turn around to go inside. And that's when we heard it. That undeniable sound of nails on the concrete patio. We both slowly turn around to see this hunched over, rotten coyote doing this very slow, very unnatural crawl towards us. We go from 0-600 paralyzed with fear almost instantly until another one of our friends playfully pulls us through the open door, telling us to get back to the party. To this day, I have not experienced anything like that, and it's one of the most horrifying things I've ever experienced. 6th story. Deer screaming and sprinting on hind legs. I live in Virginia in a pretty rural area. My house is a town home in a neighborhood right next to a middle school. I've lived in this house for over 10 years and frequently went on walks during the daytime all around the neighborhood itself, plus the surrounding buildings and woods, but I've never gone on a walk at night here. After starting college, I got very accustomed to taking walks around my campus at night when the weather's nice. So now that I'm home for winter break and Virginia is in one of its weirdly warm winter weeks, I decided I may as well go on a walk at night here, since it's a safe area and night walks are almost daily routines for me now. So, I leave my house at around midnight, not very late. I walk over to the middle school and I sit down on the track. The track is a concrete oval going around the soccer field. I'm just sitting there, relaxing, listening to music with one earbud in. I also had a lit candle on the ground a foot in front of me, which sounds kind of weird of me to have, now that I type it out. Lighting candles while I sit and chill somewhere outside is just a habit I developed from having a ton of candles and being unable to light them in my room at college. I hear what sounded like a cough, so I instantly stop my music and start looking around. I don't see anything, but I'm an extremely paranoid person, so I'm still very on edge, even though everything seems fine. I just sit there doing nothing for maybe 1 or 2 minutes, and I start settling back down, thinking maybe the cough was just leaves in the nearby woods between my neighborhood and this soccer field. So I'm almost fully relaxed, but then I head the cough again. Then I see something sprint on its back legs across the field faster than I've ever seen anything move before, and it gets to the other end of the field and then continues to stand there on its hind legs. I couldn't see it super well because it was dark and far away. Since I had just heard coughing and it was running on 2 legs, I initially thought it was a person, but when it was standing still, I could see that it was too large and weirdly proportioned to be human. It was also screeching the whole time, like an incredibly loud horror movie creature screeching that made my ears ring. It looked like its back was to me, so I took the opportunity to pack up and sprint home. I'm physically disabled and I can move around just fine, but never very quickly. I literally cannot think of another time in my life where I ever ran that fast. The only sort of paranormal thing I believe in is plain old ghosts. So as soon as I got home, I texted all my friends about it and Googled all I could. Everyone I texted reassured me it was probably just injured or diseased, since that can make deer act weird like that. So that's a little reassuring, but at the same time, I'm Googling about deer running on their hind legs and screeching their heads off, and while it's a decently documented occurrence, none of the pictures and videos on any website are anywhere near what I saw. 7th. Wendigo encounter. After hearing stories and looking stuff up online, I'm fairly sure it was a Wendigo. Me, my son and girlfriend were attacked by something. We were camping up in the northernmost area of Washington. My girlfriend is incredibly superstitious, so she insisted we brought weapons. So I had my combat knife and a 12-gauge shotgun, and she brought a .22 rifle alongside a newly sharpened machete. Our son was just 3 years old at the time. She and I were set on edge from a park ranger, who seemed very tense and uneasy, who stopped us and instead of confiscating our weapons told us to be careful and stay safe, then sent us along our way to the camp. When we got there, we were informed that several visitors had spoken about some unnatural noises and a pale creature that would mimic voices and sounds of people who weren't talking or seeming to be distracted. I laughed and put the idea out my mind, thinking to myself, there's no way. They're fucking with us. But I knew better. So we then reached the area we were going to set up camp. We immediately got a fire ready to light and set up our tent and bags. I fed my son as my girlfriend ate a snack. We decided to get a lay of the area, so me and my girlfriend hiked around for about an hour or so. I had one of those baby-carrying backpacks, and my son started to get real heavy. Everything seemed normal until I saw something down the almost path we were on. We walked closer to investigate and saw drag marks. It looked as if someone had killed a buck. There was a whole outline in the dirt with a small dried pool of blood, as if someone grabbed it from the antlers and pulled. That wouldn't be possible for any man to do. The buck, or whatever it was, would have been way too big for that. Shaken, we rushed back to base camp and restarted the fire and hurried back into our tent. Too afraid to leave since it was dusk by now, we stayed inside the tent and my girlfriend put our son to bed. Eventually, probably from the exhaustion of fright, we fell asleep. What must have been hours later, I awoke to a faint rasping sound that sounded like a child crying. I gazed outside in confusion and saw the outline of a creature that seemed to be a buck, standing over something. It seemed to be about 20 feet away, but at a closer glance had unnaturally long limbs for a buck and was eerily tall. In sudden fear, I unloaded 2 shots into the creature and heard a loud blood-curdling cry. My girlfriend awoke screaming to the shots I had fired as I tried to explain what I had heard. To my surprise, the animal hadn't moved an inch. Then I noticed the stains on the side of the animal. It looked like blood was running down the edge, and lots of it. It stared at me deep into my eyes as I became petrified with fear. A sinister feeling of dread fell over me as if it knew I could not move. I thought to myself, what if it starts to bolt towards us? Just then, this tall, decrepit demonic thing seemed to whisper something. I could not exactly tell what it was saying, but it seemed to have said, "I need more children." My girlfriend screamed, asking where our son was. We blacked out. In the morning, we awoke to park rangers at our campsite. We did not see our son anywhere. We told the rangers that he was missing, and they started a search party. I explained what had happened, and strangely, they seemed to believe it. The one who seemed to be older by at least a decade pulled along the one we met earlier and whispered in his ear. I only heard a single line, and I'm not even sure if what I heard was correct. It sounded like he said, "It's getting bolder." They didn't seem to want us by ourselves, so they waited with us while they continued the search. We stayed in a log cabin for 3 days with a forest ranger, when suddenly some rangers came into the cabin saying they couldn't find our son. My girlfriend starts to sob. I start to hate myself, thinking that I could have done something if I was not frozen in fear. We rushed outside only to find some injured and frightened police officials. The rangers wouldn't tell us anything of what happened or what they saw. or why the cops were scared shitless. All we know is that we don't have a son anymore. God help whoever goes into that forest next, and please, please don't bring your kids with you. Eighth story. Why I'll never return to Yosemite National Park. I've never really been able to talk about it. I still feel it, though, in my dreams. Eyes on me, late at night. A presence, matching my pace, walking from my car to the front door of my apartment. I can't shake it. My therapist suggested I need to tell someone, that I need some sort of catharsis so I can finally shake what happened that day and move on with my life. How can someone move on from something like this? There is forever a before and an after. The carefree, open, bright-eyed me, and the me that has to triple-check the doors locked at night. The me that got a concealed carry permit and stops at the gun range after work 5 days a week. But maybe even if I can't move on, you'll get something out of this, even if it's just a warning. California was always my dream vacation. So when my friend decided to have her bachelorette party there, I was ecstatic. It was expensive, sure, but it's not like there was a lot else I was spending my money on. I didn't have kids or a partner. My fish food budget wasn't exactly leaving me destitute. It would be a once-in-a-lifetime trip. The plan was to go camping for a week at Yosemite National Park. A little unconventional, but the bride-to-be, Annette, was always a bit of a crunchy granola girl. I'd never been camping before. I was excited. I was so stupid. Focus. Deep breaths. Okay. I'd spent my entire life on the East Coast of the United States. Sure, we had mountains, the rolling, gentle green peaks of Appalachia, but nothing could have prepared me for the reality of the Sierra Nevada. Jagged granite spurs and sheer rock faces, too young to have been worn smooth by time. It radiated a fierce, wild, untamed beauty, and entering Yosemite Valley felt like crossing the threshold into a place of worship. It took my breath away. Camping on the valley floor wasn't enough for Annette, though. It was too touristy, according to her. Too many people around. The real Yosemite experience would be camping up in the high country, up the mountain, surrounded by trees, and with some semblance of isolation. Of course, we weren't entirely alone. There were 5 of us at our campground, up near a rather stunning rock formation known as Half Dome. Other campers were within shouting distance, but at night, it truly felt like we were off in some great wilderness. I keep coming back to that thought. It felt like we were. We were. There wasn't any feeling about it. I was just too sheltered to realize. The first day was fine. Pleasant. Even. We dipped our feet into glacial springs and took group photos at the foot of waterfalls. After night fell, we roasted marshmallows and frightened each other with campfire stories and made sure we put all of our food up in bear bags. 5 is an odd number. Our tents were meant to sleep 2 people apiece. One of us could have insisted on cramming in with the others, but nobody wanted to be an inconvenience. I didn't want to have to share my space, so I ended up sleeping by myself. I didn't realize how hyper-alert I was until I tried to close my eyes. Every branch rustling, every crunch of underbrush, and the distant howl of coyotes. All quiet in their own right, but together they blended into a cacophony that left me anxious and bleary-eyed come morning. We had to be up early. We planned for a hike the second day, nothing intense. It was fine. There was just a sense I had. Maybe some leftover animal sense, back when living like this was mankind's normal, but the sense we were being tracked. "You're such a city girl," Annette laughed when I mentioned this to her. "There's all sorts of animals out here. There's probably something there, but it's not anything you have to worry about." I tried to laugh it off too. I pushed it aside, enjoying the bright California sun and the clear mountain air. I pushed it aside until that second night, where I had to get up to pee. It was past midnight, and the fire had been long since extinguished. I had a little bit of a leftover buzz from a joint I'd smoked before bed, hoping to ease some of my sleeplessness. Trying not to wake my friends, I unzipped my tent, tiptoeing by the light of my flashlight to get some tree cover in between myself and the campsite before I did my business. I shuffled out, cursing men for their ability to hold a flashlight and pee in the woods at the same time. I just crossed into the tree line when I heard it. A snuffling, soft, like a dog sniffing around a blanket. But the footfalls were much too heavy for it to be anything canine-sized. A bear? I swung my flashlight around. A bear bag creaked against the rope to which it was tied. I don't need to be scared of bears, I told myself. They're afraid of me, too. There's not a lot of underbrush in Yosemite. Forest fires burn away any thick brush that grows, and whatever was making noise didn't have a lot of places to hide. But I didn't see it. I heard it, and whatever it was sounded like it was getting closer. I wanted to yell or to make myself big, but I couldn't get my throat to work. I felt paralyzed. All I could do was step slowly back towards my tent, groping blindly behind me. It sounded so close. Nothing was there. I darted through the tent flap and zipped it shut in one swift motion, using my flashlight to see if I could detect a silhouette against the cloth of my tent. Nothing was there. I'm not sure how, but I eventually fell asleep. This didn't last long, because at the break of dawn, I awoke to the sound of complaining. Again, I crawled out of my tent, exhausted. The girls were collecting bits of trash, food wrappers, and napkins that had been spread all through the camp. Something got into our supplies, Annette told me. But the bear bag was fine? I saw it last night, I said. Well, whatever it was, it went to town, she answered. Slashed a hole right into the cloth and tore everything out. I bit my lip for a moment, thinking. I thought I heard something last night, I said sheepishly. I thought I might have imagined it. Guess not, said Annette. Guess not. That day, instead of horseback riding like we intended, was spent moving our campsite. We let the park rangers know what happened, and they let us get a permit for a different spot. They didn't want us at risk from a nuisance bear. It just didn't feel right. Sure, black bears weren't huge, but it wouldn't be small enough to hide when it sounded so close to me. When it was big enough to reach 10 feet in the air and rip our bag open, nobody else seemed worried. So I dropped it. I dropped it and decided to have fun, and the next night nothing happened, and I thought that meant we were safe. I thought it meant I could relax. I thought I could ignore all my instincts telling me something is horrifically wrong. Day 4. We were going out to the lake near our new campsite. It was blue, icy cold, bordered by idyllic wildflower meadows and redwood groves. Picture perfect. I was still tired and didn't feel up for swimming. Instead, I decided to stay back and sunbathe on the beach, while my friends rented a couple of canoes and paddled up and down the lake. When I say I was sunbathing, what I really meant is that I was people watching. It's just a lot easier when you have sunglasses on and nobody realizes you're looking at them. From my vantage point on the beach, I could see a group of frat guys daring each other to do flips off a rock into the water. A family with 2 young sons splashed around in the shallows. At another spot, a middle-aged couple was making out, like nobody was around. Guess this must be their second honeymoon, huh? A man's voice said. I jumped, startled, and turned to see another sunbather on a blanket near me. I hadn't realized anyone else was nearby. Probably hard to get a room out here, I replied. I'm not usually one for talking to strangers, but he seemed nice. He was about my age, with sparkling hazel eyes and a bright smile. He was cute, I was single, and hey, technically this was a bachelorette party. I'm Laura, I told him. Rowan. He gave me another smile. We made small talk for a bit, and the subject of our camp's invader came up. Sounds like a mountain lion, he said. What do you mean? It doesn't seem like it was a bear. And they can climb. So that might have been how it reached the bag. I didn't see anything that looked like a mountain lion, I said. That's the thing. Rowan looked more serious now. A mountain lion will only be seen when it wants to be seen. If it's out in the open, you're safe. It doesn't want to hurt you. If you can't see it, that's when you know you're in danger. My skin prickled. I opened my mouth to reply, but was interrupted by the sudden arrival of the rest of my group. Who's your friend? One of them hollered to me. Rowan waved, and then turned to me. I've had a really nice time getting to know you. Would you want to meet for dinner tonight? I know it's a bit of a long shot, but Dash? Yes. I replied a little too quickly. I was the bookish girl, the quiet girl. I wasn't the kind of girl who was asked on dates by charismatic, handsome men on faraway beaches. I'd love to. Great. Rowan gave me the location of one of the restaurants in the park, and we made plans to meet up. In the background, I could see my friends teasing me, and I blushed. Laura. Annette gushed after he packed up. I'm so excited for you. We needed something to make this trip a little more spicy. I swatted her on the arm playfully. It's not like that. Nothing's going to happen. Where would we even find the privacy? You never know, she said, sing-song. I rolled my eyes and helped my friends with the rest of their canoes before we returned to camp. I didn't have much to wear to dinner, just a plain white t-shirt and a pair of khaki green hiking pants. It's not like I had planned to meet someone out here, but Rowan didn't seem to care. He was absolutely charming at dinner, and we laughed like a pair of hyenas over a bottle of Cabernet and plates of Italian food. I was shocked, honestly, at the quality of food in the park and dazzled at the way he treated me. Flirty, but not pushy. Funny, but not annoying. By the end of his evening, he invited me back to his campsite. Tipsy, I said yes. It wasn't that far from mine, maybe half a mile away, situated higher along the mountain, separated by a series of switchback trails that crisscrossed through trees and the remnants of rock slides. In the distance, I could see other fires and hear other voices, but to me, it felt like the only people in the world were me and Rowan. We cuddled on a log next to his campfire, the night surprisingly brisk. I'm a little cold, I said to Rowan, doing my best to bat my eyelashes at him. Do you want a sleeping bag? He asked, a mischievous tone in his voice. I nodded and stood, doing my best to keep myself steady after the wine. I can get it. I tried to sound flirty and walked to his tent, hoping he'd follow. His voice was rough. Laura, wait. I unzipped the flap, and in the sleeping bag, there was unmistakably a woman, asleep. Her auburn hair was silky smooth and fanned out around her like a halo. My heart dropped into my chest. I turned, blazing, face red and hot with embarrassment. You had a girlfriend with you this whole time? I roared. My limbs were shaking. The haziness from the alcohol was gone. Rowan held his hands up in a gesture of appeasement. It's not Dash. This is a misunderstanding. She isn't Dash. She wasn't. I don't give a fuck. I backed away from him, trudging towards the path that would take me to my own campsite. I can't believe I fell for it. He called after me and I started running, tears in my eyes. Of course he was some weird player, or a swinger or something. How could I have been so naive? Did she know? She had to have heard us. He kept yelling my name, but I didn't turn back. Out of the corner of my eye I saw him standing in his camp, but this quickly faded from view. I just kept going into the now dark forest, upset, wanting to put as much space between myself and that liar as possible. I couldn't see anything. I didn't have a flashlight. I just kept going. I heard coyotes, wind in the branches, an owl, snuffling, the gentle footfalls of something trying not to be heard. I scrambled for my phone. There wasn't any service, but I could use the light. I slowed. Annette told me not to run from a predatory animal. It triggers their instinct to chase. Again, my voice failed me. But this time, I saw something. A shadow against a tree. A flash of movement. Something was there. And if I could see it, it could see me. My phone light, I realized briefly, was just a beacon to whatever was following me. I turned it off, trying to slow my breathing. My lungs hitched, and I tried not to cry. I wasn't on a trail. I didn't know where I was. And now that I was listening, now that I was quieter, I noticed. Whatever it was, whatever was following me, it was matching each breath for mine. So I wouldn't know it was there. Panic overtook me and I once again took off into the woods, dodging boulders and trees only guided by the faint light of the stars. I was fast, I was athletic, but I couldn't keep going forever. I was tired and had only had fitful sleep for several nights in a row. My body was protesting. With a burning in my chest, I decided my best course of action would be to scramble up a tree. The branches of redwoods are thin and pliable, able to hold up my weight but ideally not strong enough to withstand whatever was hot on my trail. Ignoring chips of bark underneath my nails and the scraping of wood against my palms, I hauled myself up, fueled by a wild adrenaline, ignoring the fact I couldn't tell how high off of the ground I was. I could still hear it down there, crashing through the forest at first, before again slowing to a creep, looking for me. It was so dark. I could only see the outline of the thing, vast and looming, menacing. I held my breath. I waited. I couldn't tell what was movement and what was illusion. My brain filled in information that my eyes couldn't see. Everything was something, and it was nothing. I waited in that tree until morning, until I was sure what I could see was there, and that nothing would be lurking in the dark. My hands were cramped, and my body ached, but slowly, I lowered myself back to the ground. Luckily, I had kicked up so many pine needles and so much dirt that in the bright of day, finding my way back to the trail was fairly simple. Finding my way back to my friends and our campsite was harder, but I did it. Hours of hiking, drinking from streams, asking strangers for maps, but I did it. I felt near the point of collapse when I finally got there. I must have looked like a mess. I was dirty and bloody. I had been crying in frustration and fear. My hair was tangled, but I was relieved to be back. Until I saw there were strangers in our camp. I finally found my voice. Hello? 6 faces turned to me, 4 familiar, 2 unknown. Annette rushed over and scooped me into a hug. She pulled away for a moment, searching my eyes. I noticed it looked like she had been crying too. Annette pulled me back into another hug. We thought, oh my God, Laura. We thought you were dead. I wiped a tear from her face. I'm sorry, I said. I got lost, leaving Rowan's camp after dinner. He was a scumbag. I should have just stayed with you guys. Annette was wide-eyed.
No.
You don't understand. The police showed up. The 2 newcomers approached me. Men, in sharp uniforms with solemn voices. Police officers. Ma'am, we're sure this is all very distressing to you, one of them said. But we need you to identify someone for us. Have you seen a man by the name of David Michael Whittle? He held up a photograph of a handsome, 20-something man. Of course I recognized him. He told me his name was Rowan. We went on a date last night. Is this individual familiar at all? He held up a second picture, a dreamy, auburn-haired woman with a slight smile. Sure, that's his girlfriend, or wife, or whatever. She was asleep in his camp. Why? The officer looked grim. I hate to tell you this, but this is an employee of the park by the name of Alexis Fletcher. She's been missing for about a week. The man we are looking for, the man you had seen, was the last person Alexis was seen speaking with. He was a customer of the coffee shop she worked at. She had told her boss he had asked her to meet him after she got off her shift. You couldn't have seen her sleeping. I wanted to throw up, but I did. She was in his sleeping bag. Laura, the officer said. This man, David Michael Whittle Rowan, he's been on our radar for a while. He is a very dangerous man. I'm not saying you didn't see her. I'm saying she couldn't have been asleep. We found her body a few hours ago. She had been murdered yesterday morning. Ninth story. Demon or Wendigo. Okay, so a couple years ago, I was engaged to a guy from Decatur, Tennessee. Anyone who knows anything about Decatur knows that it's part of the Trail of Tears. He was telling me about a road that's supposedly haunted. You're supposed to be able to hear hoof steps from the horses of soldiers who were making sure the Cherokee followed the trail. You're also supposed to be able to hear the Cherokee. I wanted to go, so a few of our friends, as well as my ex-fiancée and I, decided to drive down this road at about 1 in the morning. At first, I didn't feel or see anything. A little background. I'm extremely sensitive to the paranormal. I can tell when something's there. I can tell where at, and can usually see/hear them. Psychic? Medium? Hell if I know, but I know I have a gift. As we're winding down this road, getting close to the end, our friend who was driving suddenly swerves and screams that someone jumped out in front of the car. I look back, and I see this whitish creature with glowing red eyes crawling after up, almost keeping up with the car. Now when I say crawling, I don't mean human-like crawling. You know how the media portrays demons as moving sporadically in an inhuman way? Take that, and add it to this creature crawling after our car that was going about 50 miles per hour. I flipped my shit and told him to go faster. That's when we reached the old barn. I look inside into the blackness, where I got the horrible feeling of hundreds of eyes watching us. We went back throughout the next few months because it was a thrill, but I never had that experience again. I don't know what it was, but I'm extremely interested in finding out. 10th story. Weird creature spotted in Minnesota. Hello, everyone. I'm reaching out because of an event that happened last night. I need help figuring out what my mother and I saw. I moved to Minnesota about 6 months ago. It's a pretty cold state. More or less, I love it here. It's very peaceful, and when it snows, it's really beautiful. However, my image of Minnesota was changed last night. Me, my mom, and my stepfather were all sitting down watching a movie in the living room. As the movie was about to end, we paused it because my mom wanted to go smoke, and I had to use the restroom. Once I'm back from using the restroom, I go and sit down with my stepdad. A few seconds later, my mom opens the patio door and yells for us to get out there. We rush outside, and she tells us that she started hearing the noise of something big walking in the snow. When she started to look around for where the noise was coming from, about 40 feet away was a white trailer. She said that when she looked over there, she saw something with red eyes staring at her. She said that it looked like a really big dog. At first, my stepdad said that it was probably a coyote. Then I started to think on how my mom heard a coyote walking in the snow 40 or 50 feet away. I realized that it had to have been something very big. I've always been one to believe in paranormal things. My mother, not so much. We look around for a bit longer, then we go back inside. A few hours later, I leave my room to go grab a soda, so I can continue playing Halo. After the whole event, I've had this unshakable feeling. So I decided to just look outside to reassure myself that she was seeing things. As my eyes scan the edge of the woods, I don't really see anything. I take a deep breath and I grab the soda and close the fridge. As I close the door, I glimpse out the window and freeze. Sure enough, I see a pair of red eyes peering at me through the trees. I couldn't see much because of how dark it was. It was around 3 a.m., but I know what I saw. I saw something that I've never seen before. Those red eyes went right through me. Then, as quick as I had seen them, they disappear.